Well, authorities investigating the mass shooting in Highland Park, Illinois, say the suspect bought the high-powered rifles legally 3 years after he was declared a, quote, clear and present danger by police. So CBS News correspondent Kris Van Cleave is in Highland Park with the latest on this investigation. The more information we get, Kris, the more troubling this all becomes.
Anne-Marie, good morning. It does seem like there were a series of red flags now as we're learning more. Robert Crimo is expected to be in court today. This is the first time he'll face a judge and the first time he'll face 7 first-degree murder charges. This as new information is raising questions about why he was ever allowed to buy the guns in the first place. Highland Park, Illinois police had 2 previous encounters with murder suspect Robert Crimo III back in 2019. 3 years before he allegedly opened fire at the 4th of July parade Monday. That spring, officers responded a week after a reported suicide attempt, and again in September when a family member told police the suspect had a collection of knives and threatened to kill everyone.
The police removed 16 knives, a dagger, and a sword from Crimo's home. At that time, there was no probable cause to arrest. There were arrests.
The family did not press charges. Officers did notify state police of the incident, but months later, the suspect was allowed to obtain a state firearms owner's ID card, and police say began assembling an arsenal of 5 legally purchased firearms, including the high-powered rifle similar to an AR-15 used in Monday's shooting. After the 2019 incidents, the suspect's father signed a consent form allowing his son to buy at least 1 gun.
I think the parents are stunned and shocked.
Attorney Steve Greenberg is representing the suspect's parents.
Shortly after the police removed the knives from the home, they returned all of the knives. So they didn't see anything that, in their expertise, their professional opinion, raised a red flag at all.
Investigators are still looking for a motive after they say the 21-year-old fired more than 70 rounds into the crowd. Crimo then allegedly dropped his rifle and took off, blending in disguised by wearing women's clothes. Investigators believe the suspect then walked to his mother's house and took her car before driving to neighboring Wisconsin and then back to Illinois, where he was stopped by police. Officers say another rifle was in the car when he was arrested. Those who survived the deadly rampage, like Steve Tilkin, are now calling for change.
There has to be some kind of system where you coordinate all this information, all these concerns into a central database. Something has to change.
Illinois does have a red flag law that would allow authorities to seize weapons from somebody in distress. But remember, the suspect here back in 2019 didn't own any firearms. The family didn't pursue charges, and he had no further contacts with law enforcement. Now, this firearm identification card system, apparently, according to a law enforcement source I was talking to last night, has no mechanism to track complaints or warnings about people who are not currently in the system. So while the state police were given a warning, because he hadn't sought to buy a firearm at that point, that essentially was put to the wayside, Anne-Marie.
Okay, so police wouldn't have access to some of this information, but his family did. Authorities say that the suspect was too young to get a gun permit in 2019 in the state of Illinois. His father sponsored him for one anyway. This was after the incident where the gunman threatened to kill himself. Why weren't police able to sort of intervene?
Well, remember, the police, they had those 2 calls for service, following up on a report of an attempted suicide. They showed up about a week later. And then this call about the knives. Those knives were returned in part because no charges were filed. And that's frankly what would have happened with a red flag law if those had been guns. Most likely, if there were no charges filed and there was no cause to move forward, those weapons would have gone back anyway. Police can only do so much under the law. This was a circumstance where, perhaps what may come out of this is the legislature here in Illinois needs to look at that firearm identification system, and perhaps there needs to be a mechanism, a database that would flag somebody for further investigation if they've had complaints or been deemed a clear and present danger at some point.
Yeah, and I should say,
but right now that just doesn't exist, is our understanding.
I should say, because this is just another example of sort of the laws are on the books, but maybe the way they're used doesn't really make much of a difference. And I would point out that though Illinois does have red flag laws, very rarely used in Illinois, especially compared to some other states like Florida. So you have to actually take advantage of the laws if they're on the books. Listen, what are you hearing from community members? How are they working to recover, to come to terms with what happened? What are you hearing from them?
It's a mix. We've seen a lot of people show up here at the scene. There is starting to be a memorial growing not far from here. People paying their respects. We watched a woman with flowers yesterday sort of tearfully add to that memorial. We're also, we were sitting in a restaurant a couple of blocks away at lunch yesterday and just listening to the conversation there from the locals, and you're starting to, people are sort of feel like they're moving out of the shock and more into the grief and anger stage that we often see, and that's understandable. Obviously, this community has suffered a horrible trauma. I think there's also just the heartbreak surrounding some of these cases. The 2-year-old little boy that was found wandering after the shooting that was eventually brought to the hospital only to discover that both of his parents had been killed. That's just a devastating story, and that is, that sort of heartbreak is palpable still in town. This is a community like so many others that woke up to a reality yesterday that they have joined a list that no one wants to be on, a list of communities that will be known in part because of a mass tragedy, a mass shooting that will change sort of the fabric of this community.
Kris, I wonder if not only is there heartbreak, is there anger at this point? Because I know the stuff that you told me makes me angry.
Absolutely.
And I don't live there.
Absolutely. We were in a restaurant yesterday listening to the conversation, and there was definitely anger coming out of members of this community. I think there's also frustration about where the laws are. This is a state that has red flag laws. As you said, CBS News reporting shows that they're underutilized and perhaps not well understood as to when they could work and when they couldn't. You have a system here where people have to apply for a firearm identification card to buy a firearm. And here was a case where the state police who run that system were flagged that there was a problem, and yet months later, the suspect was able to buy a firearm and then quickly, over between 2020 and 2021, amassed a small arsenal of assault-style weapons, of pistols. He also had those knives, and this was clearly an individual who was putting out some red flags, certainly when you take into account his social media. And yet, here we have another example of things slipping through the cracks. And how often have we stood at one of these scenes talking about the missed signs of trouble that could have been prevented? When I used to cover transportation accidents, they would talk about how it's like a chain link fence, that there are links in the chain that lead to disaster, and if any one of those links would get broken, the disaster maybe doesn't happen. Similar situation here. If any of these one things perhaps had been done differently, we wouldn't be here talking about this, and I think that's not lost on people here. And there's also just palpable frustration that in a community that has an assault weapon ban, by the way. Highland Park has a perhaps mostly symbolic ban on assault rifles, that you had an assault-style rifle used in a mass shooting here. There's frustration from folks that, we keep having the same conversation seemingly week after week at these mass shootings.
Yeah, just to sort of expand on your talking about transportation, what we're learning more and more is that there's a long runway before an incident. And at any point along the way, and we're talking years, someone could have intervened. And maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation today, Kris. Kris, thank you so much.
Yep.